Okay. All right. Hey, y'all. Thank you for the slightly different format this week than previous. Hello from Bergen in Norway. Today's guest is Ivan Bruno, who's an amazing trombonist and improviser and composer down in Argentina, whose work is really incredible. There's basically no one who's doing anything like it, so it's really awesome that he's here with us. And yeah, I'm going to hand the floor over.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited about this and having this conversation about many things that I've been thinking through the late 10 years, maybe, like with the trombone, with, creative process in itself. Well, my English could be like floating around with words that doesn't exist. So if that happens, you will figure it out. Let that work.
That'll be fine.
Okay. And just wanted to talk a little bit about maybe like we say start talking about like the scene in Buenos Aires, which I think is a huge part of my work, like the context, right? And yeah, I think there's like a lot of interesting things that I could say about it. I mean, first, this is a city where like this is a young generation of musicians, and there's not too much like older musicians. Like there's no old people playing brass instruments, for example. So when I grew up, we just had like one, I could say two teachers playing trombone, and we were like 5 students in the whole city, in the whole. I mean, yeah, there's a huge festival of trombonists that maybe like we go like 30 trombonists, something like that, from all the country. But even like that, it was like a very strong community, I think. And well, I started playing trombone like in 2009, and yeah, I remember that I discovered it with mostly popular music, like yeah, there was like a huge wave of reggae music in town in that years, like ska. Oh yeah, Lights came to Buenos Aires a few times, and it was like, wow, I really want to play that instrument. And at the time, all that I could find about that instrument on internet was, like J.J. Johnson and barely like that, like Frank Rosolino maybe, and Orby Green, like the huge master of jazz trombonist. And it was like, okay, there's like a fertile space in there to practice, to find a language, to find like an expression. I used to play guitar, I remember, and I say, okay, everything has been done in this instrument. And it was like, okay, now I can't. And when I found the trombone, I was like very frustrated at the beginning because hard instrument.
It's a hard start.
You all know, yeah. but it was very regarding at very fast, very fast And well, and yeah, I would say that I started studying at the conservatory that time. Like 1 year later, I started playing. So I knew almost anything about music. I didn't know how to read music, how to write music, how to anything. So it was like that for a lot of musicians here. Like most of people start studying music when they are in their 20s, maybe. And I don't know, that has something interesting in like the process, because you need to learn everything very quick, like you need to learn scales, you need to learn arpeggios and the instrument and everything like in 2 or 3 years. So it was like super hard, and I was like so like dealing with so much stuff. But that at some point helped me to organize. Like if I don't organize myself, I will have a terrible moment, you know. And and that was actually like like huge motor for many of the musicians here. Yeah, and at school I met some of my friends that now are part of the scene, like Camila Nevia, like Violeta Garcia, Carlos Quebrada. They are all like amazing musicians, composers, people that has like unique thoughts and ways to proceed about music and life. Actually, you should check them out. I could write names and websites from them later.
Yeah, that would be really great, and I'll put all this in the video description. And same with like the bandcamp for TVLRC,
TVL, yeah,
which would be awesome to talk about a little bit as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, this all came together. So I could say that yeah, there's an improvisation school from jazz. Mostly, there's like a few teachers that studied jazz in the States in the 90s. So they came here to Buenos Aires. Yeah, like in 2001 or something like that, and they made this school inside of the conservatory. It was like a very traditional way to study improvisation, but it was like our space to think and to practice this music. So yeah, my background is mostly in jazz music, and at the same time I was trying to practice with classical music and like a more traditional way to play trombone. But yeah, we're mostly based on popular music. And in that school I met all these characters, incredible characters. And yeah, we found very quickly that we came at some point from altogether from popular music, from rock music, from I don't know, funk music, from I will not say noise yet, but we were really interested in sound, right? We're like the sound were something huge for all of us, and that will be our way to get into noise music. That's how at some point it got to this scene that now is working in Buenos Aires. But yeah, there's like an interesting. I think Buenos Aires actually is a metropolis and a space where is has been always a space from people from different places, you know, from Europe, from Latin America, from the States. So there are people coming, going, living all the time, and that happened with styles. There's like the sound of Buenos Aires is like a mix of everything. Like folk music in Buenos Aires is also a mix of Spain music, like Italian music. There's a lot of Italian influence here, and I think something happened with when this jazz school started mixing like avant-garde music, free jazz music, and when we got into that space, we immediately found like a space in noise tradition, I think. But yeah, we were kind of discovering ourselves by ourselves. So it was actually pretty fun. It is actually, it still is. And in that process, I think there's something really interesting to talk about, which is while we were in school, we were trying to make our own music, to make our own festivals, to make our own concerts, for trying to build our own public, you know? And I think that was a huge thing because we kind of figure out very quickly that when you finish school, like no one calls you immediately, you know, no one says, "Oh, you finished school, so come join to the scene," right? So I think that's something important to think to do actually when you're in school. It is like trying to come up with your own thing, with your trying to build a community, trying to build no matter what style or what, but it is, I think it's a big part of coming yourself like an artist, you know, like build a community at the very first beginning. Like yeah.
And do you think you feel like, since you were mentioning before, like there was not a lot of those kind of musicians and particularly brass players there, is like, did that feel like, or do you feel, I guess retrospectively, like that really kind of kickstarted that urge very early of like, oh, we need to make our own scene? Or was it like, do you feel like that was a little bit in response to that, or is more just a collective feeling between all these people of like, we need to make this?
Personally, I felt like super lost. I was like, oh wow, where I should go, you know? Yeah, it was like a lot of information, and it was like, yeah, like I was having like a lot of technical questions. How my embouchure, like, you know, like a lot of really small things that it was like huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
That are essentials. You know, when you don't have someone to copy or someone to, I had like a huge personality. I don't know. I was like super afraid. You know, like, is this like I'm supposed to sound like I was hearing the albums, the records of trombone. I wasn't sounding like them, you know. And I was like, what is it? Like, why? And yeah, there's something interesting there. It's like I later realized after playing. Uh, yeah, a few years when I travel a little bit and I start playing with other people, I realized that the way it was a huge revelation for me. The way I speak, the way my context, my environment, my language, the way I use, you know, I put my mouth. It is kind of the way I play. Yeah, I remember there was a few trombonists that came here, like Conrad Herwig came here a few times, like jazz trombonist. And yeah, I was there and was like, man, how do you? I remember I went to him and say, Conrad, I'm sorry, but how do you? Why do you sound like that? Like that? And he said me like he told me like I don't know. It's like just how we with my mouth, and no one told me how to play like this, you know. And I was like, oh. And then I realized if I started like not pronouncing, because here, but in Spanish we use like a lot the T or P or R, right? Uh, if I start learning a little bit of English and like modulating and yeah, like you just try to. I will get close to that jazz sound, like more like smooth sound, right? And then I say, okay, but that's the sound of North America, or you know, like European style, like German, yeah, you know, and say, okay, that has sense why salsa music has like this huge open sound. Even here, like it's like, okay, we speak different and we have like our tongues works different. And that was like a really nice revelation. I went to another place, but
No, that's a really
that was related.
really interesting. Yeah, I mean, and it relates to a question I wanted to ask you specifically about your voice as a trombonist. So, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and ask that question, which is that it feels like I would say the same thing about Camilla or Violetta, but I don't know. I'm not as intimately familiar with saxophone and cello to make such a definitive form of statement. But it feels to me like your work as a trombonist and an improviser is in a voice that there's no one else who does the kind of stuff that you do, and in the way that you do it, both in terms of the way that you play and in the creative ways that you prepare the instrument and dismantle it. And your creative voice is incredibly singular. So I wanted to ask about how you developed it, or like what was the impetus to development. So it seems like this was a real moment. So yeah, I'd just be really curious about like maybe starting from that Conrad Hughes sort of like what how you developed your voice, and and I guess you've partially already answered this, like what led you to develop it, and yeah, and what are the kind of influences in the way that you play, and especially the way that you modify the instrument, since it is so singular. But it also feels like a lot of people in the scene are doing very similar, just incredibly individualistic ways of playing with their instruments. And so it's because it's a multi-part question of like, one, how did you get there, and two is like, is that is it like one of those coincidental things of a bunch of people who are of sort of like-minded things found each other, or is it sort of a conscious like discussion development between y'all, if that makes sense.
It does. Definitely
Okay,
does.
good. I tend to ramble, so it's
No. Well, yeah, I think with this that I was saying, like building your own scene, or at some point, I think when we were in school, we were all having like this intuition, or like this seed of something we were playing out of that, and that's at the beginning. That wasn't something that we came up with when I think when we started studying like jazz history, and like learning about like avant-garde, or like about the AACM or collectives, right? Like, okay, there's something that we should come up with. And when that happened, when we started like making concerts and there wasn't many artists that were interested. Like all the people that were like all the teachers and all the people that were the known artists, they were looking us like, what are you doing? So, and yeah, there was like a reaction, I think, but when that happened, when we started making these concerts in houses or venues or whatever, we needed material to come up with, right? So we as individuals and as collectives, we needed to do that, to look at for our own expression. And I take it that I have like a particular way to play, but I think everyone actually has it. I think you have your own sound. Weston has his own sound, and I think that's I'm grateful that that's like that, because yeah, we actually play the same instruments. We are trombonists. We are interested in noise music. We are interested in electronics. I don't know, like improvisation, sound. But we all approach it and we take it to our own thing, because and that's like, I think, the first part of this creative process. Like when we need to come up with something, you're alone in your room saying okay, what should I do like next Friday for this concert? Like, are we alone, or will be like with an ensemble, or what should I do? Like, and that's like that blank page of the process. And at some point, whatever you do it inevitable with your own approach and with your voice, even if you're copying something. It's like you will do it probably, hopefully, wrong. Because if you do it right, it's like something doesn't work. I don't know. But if I will talk about, for example, Camila came more from a free jazz perspective. I remember like we were studying a lot of Ornette, of Sonny Rollins, even like we were really studying like bebop and all that music, and then there was a moment that she just took like a direction of breaking that and bringing things of her own voice, like poetry, like putting like little things from different uh, spaces of her mind. I think same for Violeta. I think she came from a more like a classical background, but yeah, she was really interested in like in sound. That was like the thing that bring all of us together. Like the sound is our huge friend.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a nice way.
But yeah, with this, I wanna say something else. Is like in that first process of coming up with something, and you're alone in that room and say, okay, what should I do next Friday? And you're in front of that blank page. Actually, I like to think that you have all of your past, right? It's like you have all of like an infinite to the past, where all the things that you used to like, all the things that used to resonate with you would probably work in the future. Um, and yeah, and there I think comes a huge part of it, because how I say, we were all interested like in rock music, in improvisation, in free jazz, and all. And what we came up with, it was like the things that we like, right? As I think we didn't try to come up with something new. It's like, okay, we are using the materials that we like and see what happened with that. And like most people ask me like how, well, I know, like taking all the parts of my trombone out and this thing and etc. And it's like, I don't know, I remember like being a kid and just being fascinated by, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix, like firing his guitar. I don't know, it's like, it's a like very usual example, but I don't know, there's something that moves me actually, and there's not something I think new on for me making it. Why I think music is like a constant reorganization and residual of different musics. But yeah, I don't know. And there's a lot in that process that I could say. I don't know. You have any
Yeah, I
questions?
mean, I'd love to hear more about what you have to say about that process. I, um, yeah, it seems just I really like the what you said about the kind of core commonality, just an interest in sound.
Mm,
Um, I really just like that way of thinking of it as a
mm,
departure, and it a lot of what you're saying reminds me of what I've heard some people, especially who came up in like the the 90s and the earlier 2000s improv scene in Los Angeles say about LA is that it always felt like there's so much physical space, that there's always the freedom to just like to find your own space and to make your own organizations and make your own voices. Um, and It just seems like from what you're saying, it's like there is a drive to, but it also feels like there's like a lot of space for this group of friends to just like have a common interest and build from there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess I was just kind of curious about that. And yeah, it just, and I guess you've kind of already answered that. It's just, it seems like a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
artistic choices there.
yeah. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like a huge group. You know, at the beginning we're like Violeta, Carlos, Camila, and I. We were like four, the four of us, like just moving like little monsters in the city, and nowhere we're interested. And but I don't know, we were like feeling it, and sometimes maybe like one teacher or one musician, like I don't know, like Tony Malaby or Tim Byrne came to Buenos Aires, and we tried to communicate with them, and they were saying all of this to us, like what you have, like just keep doing it. You know, it's like there's no big scene of this and at any place. It's like just you should just do it if you like it, if you and that was like a huge thing for us. It's like, well, doesn't matter, like. And then I mean, like, yeah, probably like having these voices talking to us help us to ground and to not just like say, okay, it was fun for a few weeks and just keep doing it. Yeah. But what I wanted to say is like it doesn't need to wait for a huge collective to take you, right? It's like if you know one person, like maybe you and Weston, right? It's like, okay, let's connect and build from there. It's like you don't need to be like 10 crazy trombones.
Yeah, you
right?
just need that person to kind of to feed off of.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
I would also just be curious from a most of the people in the class who are watching this are not trombonists, but I think that they can gather from this too is, I'd be very curious as, in this scene, there's these three people you're talking about who are all incredible, but none of them are, are brass players. And it's, I've always felt that it's like when you're playing with non-brass players who can do all these amazing things, you just want to do it with them. So you kind of just learn outside of like what the trombone does and instead like what the sound is. And so I just was curious about like if you felt that was a part of, especially of having such a specifically unique voice on the trombone, of like how much of that comes from just exchanging ideas with people who aren't concerned with what the trombone does, and instead like the making of sound and how that relates. So I just would be curious about your thoughts on that or reaction to it, or like if you felt like that was a part in finding your voice, of finding it with people who don't, as you put it, whose interest is in sound and not in the trombone.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. I would say that there's in Buenos Aires now there's a lot of brass players, trumpet players, trombone players that play amazing. At that time, they were really interested in shedding, like in playing fast and playing, and that they were sharing to media or what they were doing was that, and yeah, they were like receiving like millions of likes, like, and part of the scene were that, and it was like, I don't want to go like to that competitive place, and I like studying traditional jazz, bebop, or yeah, like even classical music, like that is hard to play. But I really don't like to think about music like a sport. They have like this, to the warm up and yeah. I try to think about it more like an elastic uh, way of I don't know, like living. And yeah, at the beginning it was like more like a reaction. I think when we were playing, we were like, how can I do the most annoying sound in the whole city? And I'm not proud of taking that reactive direction, but then I try to mix it, because I never fully left of playing songs or playing with people that play popular music. So, and for all of us work in the same plane. Carlos now is mostly like making trap and reggaeton beats, and he's taking all of that noise world. Violeta is playing mostly with songwriters. Camila is more like this world of maybe like composer and playing with all of that. But yeah, I think we all have connected. Never have like think about music as a different thing of noise, actually. And the other thing was like, as a trombonist that grew up in a place where it's not that much information, I tried and I try and to play all any chart that comes like in front of me. It's like I try to play music for piano or for violin, or even when Camila was around, we were like trying to play saxophone duets or whatever. We were just trying to read and like find new place to articulate. That's all about it. I mean, like having a huge palette, you say, like of articulations, of dynamics, of range and timbers, and then build something with that. That was like part of, for me, it was always like an important part of it. I was always interested in sound with the instrument, and in sound like technically like recording, and yeah, that's a part of it. But yeah, if you want, I could talk a little bit of how that coming up with something worked for me, and how I started thinking about how I solve that problem. That I don't know if we're in the process, are like the students here in the room, but I think it could work for someone. I mean, I would say like
Yeah, I mean, there's a mix. We have a number of MFA students or master's students, and we have a number of different level of bachelors and kind of a really broad mix. We've got on the master's side, we have bassoonists or a bassoonist in this class, a violinist, we have a few pianists,
Amazing.
we have a flute player, we have um, a violist who does some really excellent stuff with pedals and no input mixer, and yeah, it's kind of all over the spectrum. It's really great in that regard.
Amazing.
And a thing that it's 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 super fun on the teaching side. Um, I think that I think that you hinted at that I think is really important that I hope everyone picked up. So I'm just gonna repeat it just to make sure. Is talking about like with like playing sax duets with Camila and all of these things is just that like that real curiosity of like always just trying to find something,
Mm.
um just being curious about sound and about how to play and always finding new things to play of like, oh, I'm not just gonna practice trombone books or violin etude books if you're a violinist, but always like, yeah, I'm gonna play piano things or saxophone things. And it feels to me like everyone I know who like whether they're playing jazz or noise music or classical music or whatever, who
Mhm.
is like really really good, has that curiosity of always trying to find things that aren't meant for their instrument and finding their instrument's relationship to it. Um, and so I'm just really happy that you brought that up because I just feel like that's just such a like consistent thing across styles and pedagogy types and all the
Mm.
different countries of musicians that I've worked with. Like everyone who really does well has that curiosity.
Mm.
So I'm just really glad that you mentioned that, and I just wanted to to really draw
Mm.
some attention there.
Mm.
Where were we going
Yeah.
before I said that? I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, no, no. That's a thing, and I think, uh, yeah, it can be overwhelming sometimes because you have to study a lot of, like what the canon says at some
Yeah.
point, but it really helped me to not uh, get my voice into just one particular way of sound. I really want to keep finding new ways to articulate, to use rhythm, to use sound, to use, it's like, and I think listening music, just transcribing music or just reading music, uh, it's a really helpful way to expand your vocabulary, and improvising is a huge part of it. It's like, okay, I have this new thing, little thingy, and let's see how it sounds in the middle of, and copying other instruments too. Um, yeah, I think like just jamming is like also a huge part of it. Like when you're with other instruments that you don't know how to play. I don't know how to play cello, but I played with this cellos for many years, and I think that I can copy some things like, um, after repeating it many times.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Just to ask a quick follow-up question, because it's something that we'll talk about in a later class in the semester, is this kind of
Mhm.
exchange with other instruments. So, and I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts on that and like how you approach it. Of like, for example, like playing with, Violetta, who's a cellist. I'll put a link to her work in the description of this video for the class. Um, it's like when you try something like that, are you I just would be curious on her approach because I'm going to talk specifically about this kind of thing, um, in another week. Um, are you trying like when you do that? Is it do you try to like just imitate the sound or think
Mm.
about like kind of observe what she's doing with her body in relationship to the instrument and try to sort of, I guess you could say, transpose that onto the physicality of the trombone or somewhere in the middle. I just would be curious about your particular approach with that.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. And I think there's a point that I didn't think about, which is when I don't know what, like playing with the cello. I don't know when cello is playing like a low C, and you hear the grain of the string, and yeah, when I'm trying to copy, for example, that sound, the grain is like really different to like just a tone, right? So yeah, there's a lot of things that probably are not good from what technique is, or what for my embouchure. I try like different things sometimes with my mouth to get to new sounds. Same thing with the instrument position. I'm constantly like trying different things and movements that are not okay, let's say. And yeah, like sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm playing like to the ground or to the roof or to like inside of the water or inside of I don't know, a plant. But it's like you're not supposed to do that. But sometimes it's like, how do I get to this sound that I have not in my mind, like there, like in 1 feet from me, Yeah. And yeah, I think it's important, of course, to have like a space where you are careful from your embouchure and your, well, like in brass instruments, right? Like your technique, let's say, for be safer for your body, like don't hurt yourself. I really spend a lot of time that, like in my posture and my embouchure, but I know where the place where I'm safe, and I know where I can break that and how to deal with that. And I encourage people to try that, because if you keep in the standard, you might not find that sound or that emotion that you're trying to, that grain, the specific thing that you're looking for, right? So yeah, both of it. Like I think about the sound and I think about the movement, and if I see like there's like a huge thing, I probably like push my mouth to the mouthpiece, which is wrong. But I don't know, maybe I'll find it.
Oh, and it's such a good point that, I think especially for students to hear is like, spending that time on, doing things properly and like really learning where your center is, because then that allows you to change all of these things without in a safe way, without hurting anything, but also kind of intelligently exploring, where you're not like, oh, I'm only going to find the sound one time. I mean, there are other sounds too, but it's like, I'm only going to find this one thing one time and it's going to be gone. It's like, no, you have a home base that you're departing from. So that's awesome.
Yeah, if you have a 40-minute set and in the first 5 minutes you hurt yourself, you will not have a nice time. So yeah, it is important to learn how to practice with that. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any question more about that? But I was going to more like the creative stuff and like
Yeah,
coming.
that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When this time came of like coming up with projects and building new ensembles and I don't know, like taking the space. We were trying to do it like constantly, coming up with something new. And I've been always really interested in in creative process. And yeah, I always read, like try to read about, I don't know, like I really like journeys, for example, of not only musicians but painters, like filmmakers, literature, science, and to see how to people get into the project, right? And I repeat this thing that I say to myself. It's like I always find this, not maybe probably in general, but like this thing that when someone builds something, it doesn't came from nothing. It came from years of thoughts and experiences and people moving around. So yeah, I think that a huge part of what I do, what I did, come from my different devices of journeying, which and yeah, with this I want to say that yeah, I read a lot of I read or I read. How do you, I mean, the past of I read.
I read, yeah.
I read. Okay, this is an English class now, but I read. But most
Your English class would be much, much shorter than my Spanish class.
Okay, but what I want to say is that I read a lot of these creative artists, and I try to imitate their creative process, and most of the time it didn't work for me. So with this, I want to say like this is my way to approach it, and it might not work for you, but it's like I think that all these tools, it takes me so long to find out like how to create a new project that it was nice to share with you more than like technical thing about my music. So like I realized this thing about like I'm constantly composing with my past ideas and with my past experiences, and how I was saying, like I have all these devices which are like in my phone. I don't know, like pictures, all my I have my recording thing of my phone is full of audios. Like last night I was here and I have someone from 2015, something like that, and it's like, what is this? And I found like, wow, this is actually amazing, like keep finding. And it could be like text, could be drawing, could be like travel journey, emails, I don't know, like Google Drive, social media. Even sometimes, like I go to my feed and say, what was I doing like in this time, or collections, and there's always a lot of material. I think that everyone has probably somehow of archive of their material, and if they don't have it, I think it's good to have a notebook and just throw your ideas there, right? I mean, I have with me like millions of notebooks, like, and yeah, I'm constantly like, because if you have an idea and you know, oh,
Hold on just one moment.
we have a
I'm going to
guest.
just pause the recording.
Yeah.
Hello again. Sorry about the pause. Right here is my duo partner, Weston Olencki, who I'm in Bergen with, and we are currently doing a trio project with Denny, and we are currently wearing masks because there's a bit of a lack of clarity in the CalArts COVID protocol, because technically any CalArts activity is a representation of CalArts. And so while we have no COVID protocols here, to be safe, we are wearing our masks to be consistent. And yeah, so then he was just talking about just the importance of keeping notes and ideas. And everyone in the class has probably seen me taking notes every week when we have guests. I would encourage you to do, all of y'all to do that. I have a binder at home that has every piece of paper about the trombone I've ever been given, just goes into this one giant binder. I encourage everyone to do it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It's impressive. So now that we have restarted the recording, I'm going to hand the floor back to you with this caveat of why this human appeared.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't necessarily has to be like I say, like a notebook, right? It's like it could be again a picture, like a screenshot, like the material that you have in your hard drive, and yeah, drawings or whatever you have like in any of your devices. It's like, it's a good question, like what's your device for taking notes, which could be whatever thing. This could be like a picture, one picture one day, and yeah, we were saying like how ideas come from, like, it's a recycle from past ideas, past experiences. And yeah, sometimes I think about, I found not precisely like in an idea, like I had like, okay, I want to do this thing with trombone, but with something that I enjoy, something that I like. And it could be like, I sometimes take a note like, okay, this album I really liked, or this book I really like. And sometimes it's just like putting together one thing with other, right? Like having an A idea, like, or A theme with a B thing, and just putting together. And I don't know, I just find that really interesting about, for example, yeah, like the three of us, how we said at the beginning of the conversation, like we three play trombone, we three are involved in electronic music, we are interested in improvisation, and each one of us makes something completely different, thank God. Because and that's really beautiful, because I know, I like the banjo thing, for example, that Weston is making. It's like, okay, I really like to do something like that, but it will take like my whole life probably, because I don't know the tools or whatever I have. But it is interesting how, like, okay, my identity, my way to proceed to over materials is completely different from we both or we three. And yeah, I don't know, like I just wanted to know, take this moment also to ask you, Weston, like what take you to that project, for example?
I mean, it's the thing that you're bringing up that I think is like extraordinarily important is that like like we all like are kind of our own like unique like set of references based on like the music we like, the art we like, the things that we like find ourselves doing, like where we grew up, like what did we grow up, like what is like what's our kind of like node in this entire network. And it's kind of like using almost like using what's at hand, like and like what are your like very particular things that you're like, man, I really love this, and I love like these things, and they're totally contradictory, but maybe there's art in that. And I don't know, at least for me personally, like I grew up in South Carolina, like I learned to play banjo as a kid, and I thought it was like I hated it, and I was like trying to run away from the South as much as possible, and like and did that geographically. Like I live in Vermont now, but I haven't lived in the South since I was in high school. But it was like gradually over the years, it's like, why have I been running? Like, what is it? And starting to be like, oh, what does it mean to like then make art about the South? And like, okay, it's like this kind of this instrument and this music is like not only tied up with like my personal history, but like is fully intertwined in like the like myth of America. And like it is not a white, it is a, it's like comes from an African American and like an African tradition that was brought over here through the Middle Passage and has wound its way up, like embedded in like the entire history of America. And that's stuff that I feel like really interested in right now. And so it's kind of like combine all of these things and like weird robotics and weird software stuff and all this kind of everything. And it's kind of, you end up with something that's like what that is, which yeah, it's like you wouldn't make this and you wouldn't make, but like y'all have your own versions of this. It's like, okay, this is so like particular and this is so kind of like unique and like, and it finding a way to do that that's not like navel gazing, like it's not like, oh my god, these things are so precious and so special, but like what about this is so special to me, and could this be special to somebody else? And like what does like what is this particular constellation of things like kind of like say about itself, and also say about like you making it and your relationship to it, but then like once it's like out of your hands, like what's its relationship to the world, what's its relationship to your listeners, what's its relationship to your friends, like. And so yeah, like a thing that the three of us would make together, and even the thing that like the two of us or the two of us or the two of y'all would be completely different. And like letting that kind of happen and like being honest with like, do we need like what's going on here? Which is that like, really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like y'all's duo record and our duo record, like
could not be more different.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like to think about composing sometimes like this connection of two different materials, right? Like we say, okay, I'll make an album of trombone. I say trombone and what? Because if you do like an album of trombone, it's like, okay, what can I bring to it that is not already done, or no, I don't know. It's like, so like this mix of things that could be trombone and capitalism, I don't know, and cooking or whatever, right? It's like how you mix these things. And I lately found that it's not only A and B, it's like you are the letter C, right?
Exactly.
So I could, if I could do a project that could be like banjo and electronics or banjo and robots, and would be completely different to what you will do or Maddie will do or any of the students. And yeah, that's something also, like sometimes we are afraid to copy or to take an idea, but I think it's actually important to empowering and taking your own voice from a material that already exists, right? As a way to start to a new composition or a new material.
So then a question for you is that then if there's this kind of like you're like works and your relationship to your instrument is almost a thing that's also about your relationship to your instrument and this thing's relationship to something else. How do you figure out like what that something else is? Like how do you like, I don't know, what sticks for you? Like how do those kinds of like conceptual decisions happen?
Yeah. Well, again, I think when I go back to my screenshots or to my hard drive or my notebooks, I find what excites me or what I feel in love with, and I don't know. Sometimes, for example, for the videos that I like to do, but I used to do, sometimes I think about like about magic, for example, right? And I think, okay, how could I play the trombone faster than I will never do? So it's like just chopping something and putting it together and editing the video. And I don't know, the train is crazy today. I don't know what's going on, but there it is. No, yeah, like mixing. Yeah, sorry. I don't hear it because I grew up in this house and I don't hear the train except when I have it in my headphones.
I grew up near I grew up near a rail yard too, and I just don't hear it.
Well, that's a whole word to go there. But yeah, that's the thing, and I think that every actually piece that you could hear or read or watch or whatever, it is really connected to the private life of composer, of the filmmaker or the artist that is making it, right? And I think that the piece has like an inside and an outside, that it's always like in a crossfade, that at least to me it really helped me to work in the space that I enjoy, that I have fun making. Because again, when I started like looking for like ideas or creative process or where I start composing, I was looking to my reference or to the people that I like, and I realized that I was watching the things that they were enjoying and probably were not mine, right? And I don't know, like someone could compose, make a composition about a book of, I don't know, like history and Argentina, and I will go to that book and maybe it doesn't make anything to me. And what I realize is, okay, I need to go to the book that makes something to me and compose something from there, or the movie that I like. And that was like a huge thing, like accepting yourself and the things that you really enjoy and the things that really touch you and the things that are from your context and the things that you right, like you grew up thinking and developing in your mind. That are the things that helps you to start a process or to come up with something new when it actually it's all for you, probably.
I think that's a really great point of like, yeah, and things that maybe feel like old hat or like they're kind of worn out to you, like to somebody else, it can have this like real magic to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Also, because I'm curious too, and this is a thing that
That's the best part about teaching the forum classes. You get to ask people
yeah.
questions.
So then I feel like the answer was actually in your previous answer, but I'm really curious about this. But like, what do you? So that like, given that like the kind of seed for these things come from like this like greater like kind of like why does this like piece of art like make me have these feelings and let me use my own art to kind of unpack these feelings? How then do you feel like technique and like technical skill and kind of like ability in a certain medium, whether it's trombone or video or sound editing, like how do you feel like that comes into it? Like is it like for you, is it a thing where you're like, okay, I can just see this thing and I don't really know how to do it, I'm just going to figure it out? Do you kind of go by like a process of like, okay, I know these microphones with these sounds do this thing, like, you know what I mean? Like is it more kind of like, are you building the thing, or are you kind of like or are you kind of like learning as you go or things like that?
Well, I think there's something really, really interesting, which is there's like a traditional way, which is you first, I don't know how you say it in English, but this you first think and then you exist, you know, like so like this thing of, okay, you have like a seed, an idea, and then you make it, then you like see it, you build it with your hands or whatever. And sometimes I think that could be like problematic. But to me, it's like if I think about it and I know everything, I'll go to solve it. Sometimes it doesn't really come up with the result that I want, and I think that in that place, improvisation has very a huge importance to me. It's like sometimes I improvise making something, you know. It's like at the same time, or when I'm at the instrument, I'm having the idea and I'm trying to solve it. And yeah, there was a few times that I for example, I did one album called Brazo, which is harmonica and electronics, and I had
great album.
Really good. So I'll link that below for everyone.
Yeah, I'll put it here. Yeah. Here I have the link.
Oh, perfect. You can put it in the chat. And just for reference for the class, because of both of us having slightly unstable internet, we're not doing any media sharing. But I will have media in the video description right below for everyone to check out. And I will also link everything that's on YouTube in a playlist. This video will be great.
Nice. Well, that one, it was actually like it was January 1st last year, I think. Yeah, 2021. And I woke up and I was, there's something, there's a story, you can read it in the description of the album. But it was like, I would like to try this sound thing. And while I was playing, I was recording the session. And that was, I didn't make any post-production over that album. It was like just making and it was spontaneous, like what would just happen. And sometimes I think it works for me, and sometimes I start it is kind of an improvisation when you don't manipulate the materials that you're using, right? It's like when I started editing video, I didn't know anything about video, and I just started doing it. Same with recording audio, same with I don't know, like, yeah, how you put these mics or whatever. So I think there's a mix. I think like technique, of course, helps you while you can break it, right? At some point, it's like it's good to, yeah, like, well, we all like cooking, so we all know like the basic of recipes. But then you know it, and you did it a few times. It's like you start changing and adding things, um, and I think that I apply that to composition too. Yeah, it's like think doing and not doing after thinking, probably, right? If that answered, yeah, that the harmonica thing was. Also it was in that sense, it was a huge thing to me, like abilitate what I did know or what I wanted to explore. For example, I came from this acoustic background and classical and jazz and whatever. And well, you Weston, I don't know you, Maddie, but you work with recording audio and mixing and mastering, and I was really interested in that, and I was really interested in sound and mics and gear, and it's like not many musicians were interested in that.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to understand that is an tool for composition for me too.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing also, to recognize what is your tools. I mean, I'm now composing something for a string quartet, but I'm not every day like in the desk with a like composing a note in the on paper.
Right.
I'm using different tools like processing audio, like using my Zoom recorder, or like processing string guitar, or I don't know, like using different things. And I think that's important. I don't know how was that for you, like simulating.
Yeah, and I think that that's just a really good advice, for the students, not just in terms of, I know a lot of y'all compose, but also as performers, it's like recognizing what your tools are, and that like you may get advice from a lesson teacher, for example, saying, oh, you need to practice this thing, and you may find that that doesn't like work for you, and trying to say, okay, trying to learn to say to yourself, well, it's like, what is this thing getting at? Like, what role is it serving in my practice, either for composition or improvisation or performance or whatever, and like try to recognize what that role, that tool is playing, and then find a tool that works for you, that filling a similar role.
Yeah, and I think totally with that's something that Danny, you brought up that's really important too, is that like I think you also like have to really have like a respect for your materials, and you have to like really care about your tools. And it's not just something like I don't know, like you could make a case for like ironic or like using irony and using like things, but like that's an intention, and there's kind of like I found there's kind of no substitute for like an intentional relationship with the things that you work with. And like oftentimes just like it feels maybe the three of us always default to like love and care because that's just maybe the people that we are, but like I don't know, but like having like a real respect for like the thing, like the materials that you work with, or the traditions that you work in, or the like, and like experimentalism is like a tradition. It is an ethos that is passed down from generation to generation. That's like for all of its like, maybe that's my own soapbox for later, but having like genuine like kind of curiosity too. Like that's the thing that like I love about your work so much, is just like it's so obvious just how curious you are about like, what about this, what about this, how do all of these things work together, and that kind of curiosity like just is like so apparent.
Yeah.
And then it comes from like it comes from like caring about it, and that all of these materials and like recording and video have all of their own histories and all of their own traditions, which are just as like fleshed out as all of our musical traditions.
Yeah.
To like figure these things out is to enter into a relationship with that, and to like kind of yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm soapboxing a little too hard.
No, soapbox, great.
But like the fact that you brought that up too is like a core part of this, is like kind of seeing what's in front of you and like, what are these materials telling me? What are these sounds telling? What are these images telling me?
Yeah.
Is like, yeah, I don't know. Cannot be overstated how like, I think for all of us, like that's such a key part of like making stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like making space for that particular step of the process too.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it could happen that the proceeding or that your tool that you're using it doesn't work for that specific process, but it might work for another one later. No, so it is important to not just like put you in, like a box of, oh, these are just my tools. It's like it's nice to hear that of like the material probably will let you know what is the best for it. But yeah, again, it's like it was a huge thing for me to not say I can't use this thing because it's not part of this tradition. Right. Yeah. Yeah, about that, it's like I think it's really a thing to take note what doesn't work for your piece, because I don't know, it's like sometimes what doesn't work, it's what build the next piece for me. Right? I don't know, I think Picasso said like, oh, every piece of art is like a residual of a lot of other pieces, or I don't know, like Lynch says that he needs like 11 ideas to make a film, and then he just put all of them together like connectors, or and I don't know, I think like sometimes a piece or a composition could, everything that is out from it could give born to the next piece. That's, I don't know, that's how sometimes works with me. Like, how should I improvise with these materials that are wrong, that doesn't work? What's right? Yeah, I don't know. What else? Any questions about it?
So we talked a lot about kind of, I think some like personal approaches, and also the background and the scene that you've been a big part of. Let's see, we have about 20 minutes-ish. I'd be curious just to hear, maybe talking about, since we talked kind of the present and how we got to the present, is like, what are your, what kind of stuff are you working on in like current, kind of future plans? And I also know that you've just been doing a lot of taking a ton of initiative with a lot of teaching stuff. I'd be really curious to hear about what you're doing teaching wise and your approaches to that, and also kind of what you're working on and what you're trying to steer towards.
Nice. Well, I think there's something happening probably like all around the world, which is like this reconstruction after COVID. And at some point I think it's bringing like new ways to express, at least in the scene here in Buenos Aires. We were talking a little bit before the conversation that, for example, there's a lot much more media work happening in the scene, like people playing with many instruments, many like laptops, live electronics, and that is like that is interesting. It's like the real context of what we lived in the last 2 years. Like we are like, it's like our computers are part of our nature now. And I remember, at least here in the scene, it was like, okay, I know I'll just bring my instrument, like my computer is like, I will not bring. And now it's like everyone has like the interface or the tools to process. And I think there's something really interesting in there. And for me personally, I find out that some of my expression lately, it's related to processing my instrument and finding new ways to work with amplification, with developing the sound. I've been working on that with different tools. I think my neighbors are having party right now. I don't know if that is on the mic. I got really serious and I got distracted. Thanks. No, but yeah, I was about to say that I don't know if I want to get like very much inside of my personal thoughts about electronics with trombone, but yeah, I'm fine. I think I'm finding a different way to play since I started working with digital processing on the instrument. And that's something new, and I really like it because I kind of feel that you know, when you receive so much inspiration from all the big masters of improvisation and experimental music and trombonists and all of that, and it's like, well, where's my thing, you know? And I think there's very fertile space in electronic music, and there's a lot of new tools that come up every day, right? And I've been working on that. I don't know if I should come to weird with explanation of it, but I've been working a lot with lights too, like I did a show last year. I should share a video. I need to upload it, and I could send it to the mail list in the class,
That would
so I could share. Yeah, that's
I
not
would
an
love to see it.
Yeah, I can share it to you too.
Once I get it, I'll update this video listing that'll be on YouTube to include it as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's mostly what I've been working on. Yeah, and yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff coming up that it's like in the seed process. Yeah. Like yeah, I'm working with this piece for string quartet and electronics, but everything is like in the process of watching my screenshots from my phone. Yeah. Where else?
Have you cooked anything good recently?
Um,
Want to cook?
yeah, I mean, I really like the links that you've been sending to me. You should share that to the class.
Welcome to send that to me, and I'll share. Weston has been sending a ton of YouTube cooking videos.
But yeah, I mean, we could talk about our project. That's in.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that
definitely love it.
That's
there's a nice process to share. Yeah, I don't know if someone wants to say it clearly.
I mean, I think you described it the most clearly. So maybe I'll just give a brief explanation. And so we're discussing via Zoom because none of us live in the same place. Weston's in Vermont. Danny, as he said, is in Buenos Aires, and obviously I'm in LA, and trying to figure out a way to do a project. And so we're having a Skyping session together, and he shared these lovely images he had been taking of doing field recordings, but on the Zoom recorder over the little microphones are different parts of the deconstructed instrument. So that's becoming basically part of the microphone and recording through that. And so at the stage we are right now, we're all three of us are recording various spaces through our instruments. The city we're in is a harbor city, so we're going to walk around the harbor tomorrow recording, and essentially using brass instruments as ears. He sent us these really amazing pictures of these listening devices that were pioneered during the First World War, before radar was invented, to try to hear planes. And there's these giant metal ears. I will link those.
It was like an entire archive website that looked like it was from definitely from 2005. Had some really like great early internet aesthetics. But yeah, it was like an entire thing, and all of these different kind of basic enhanced listening devices that everybody's just made up.
Totally amazing. So the core of this project is we're doing all these field recordings through our own instruments, and then Weston also made this max patch to
I'll be remaking this max patch.
You sent it to us.
Oh, I sent it.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weston
don't put it in the active voice. A bottle of water exploded onto my computer yesterday and wiped my whole hard drive.
So that was really fun.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Embarrassment.
But we have this max patch that was created to take convolution reverbs of the insides of our instruments, so that we can then, in addition to making these recordings of the spaces through our instruments.
Here I found them.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah.
So
pictures.
in addition to be able to take recordings of the spaces and individual spaces we're all in through our instruments, then we'll also be able to process our instruments in a reverb space of each other's instruments. So we're sort of embodying each other's individual sounds, both in terms of place and in terms of the physical. Not only do we all have these different approaches to the trombone, but we'll be able to literally process each other through the trombone in that way. So that's kind of my overly long description of the core of the project. And yeah, maybe you can say some more about it as well. Right now, the project is pictures and a Google Drive of audio files.
Yeah. There was. I think I like to think about it like this again. This process of we have trombones and we have field recording. We have different places. We have 3 different ways of approaching field recording. We have let's say 3 different instruments over all the possibilities, right? Like all the possibilities of field recording. So my approach, I didn't tell you, but it's like, but yeah, I'm mostly like trying to make some kind of field recordings over, for example, stone, over wood, over wind, over water. And again, like this mixing could be just like the main idea that makes everything works, right? Sometimes it doesn't really need to be something that works, but finding these connections helps you to make the stuff work. I don't know, or like helps at least me to keep alive that curiosity and saying, okay, how many different stones can I put close to my trombone and make that? What can I do? I didn't try fire yet. Okay. But I'm dangerous, so I might.
Put my trombone or put my euphonium in a fire before. It's not really.
Okay, it isn't.
I should. What can happen if it's like the bell is you could unsolder the bead a little bit, but it has to be quite a hot fire.
Okay.
I like it.
Like the valve in a fire.
Yeah.
People in the class who play violin and flute and all bassoon don't do any of this. This is just for your instruments. I'm not advocating that, even though we do those things to us.
But yeah, I mean, there's like there will be like a poetic way to approach to all of this material. I mean, yeah, like how could violin and fire relate, or any string to fire? To how will you come up with a composition for that? How could you come up with bassoon and water, right? It's like you have like a bunch of possibilities. And doesn't necessarily you need to put your bassoon into a pool, but there's like many ways of poetic ways to get inspired to compose something or to improvise something, or just to keep developing your vocabulary. Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I was just I really and the fact that these kinds of like where are the poetics happening? Like you don't have to do it literally, but like kind of being aware of like on what scale are we kind of talking here? Because I feel like one thing that like it was definitely something that Donnie you proposed, but we all kind of like definitely had like an aha moment with it, or at least I definitely did, of like we were all trying to like figure like, okay, like we're in 3 very different places, like with very different setups, and like, okay, do we try to like the normal or the kind of first reaction is, okay, how do we come together? How do we like
Mhm.
start to be more similar? How do we like compensate for like having tons of different recording gear? And then you were kind of like, wait, why don't we just push it even farther apart? And like, what do we get from that kind of like creative, like macro creative decision? And I feel like that's like always a really important thing, is that like the idea was something we all resonated with us, but it was like, wait, like sometimes like if things are discontinuous or like not like meant to sit together, like sometimes like being like, okay, why are we trying to all compensate for this? Why do we not like go towards the individuality of this and then see where that leads us? Which then eventually led us to this project, which has been really fun. And like,
Yeah.
it's really awesome hearing you talk about it, because like I have a very different approach to it, but like that's like the really beautiful thing about it, is that like we kind of like, it's like it's a process right now more than it is like a composition. It's just like, oh, we are like gathering a bunch of materials, and the process of gathering them is like kind of already informing what the thing is. But it's so open that we can kind of, yeah, like you can have your relationship to it, you can have yours, I can have mine, and that we'll still end up with something that'll be like how you were saying earlier, how like a piece has like an inside and like an outside. It's like we're kind of on the inside now of like, what do all these things mean to us? And then we'll make it, and then we'll like kind of craft the outside and then see how that means to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then both are like equally important too.
Well, and to just tie in a couple of things to do the like teacherly wrap up bow kind of thing. You know, I think especially talking about the scale that you're talking about in relation to this project, and like bassoon and water, and thinking about it, you know, earlier in the class we were talking about like playing with you know, Camilla or Violetta, and like relating your sounds to their sounds. And you know, and I think that that kind of scalar idea is, you know, is really related to that of like, you know, if you want to, for example, or you know, like play bassoon and water, you know, you can think of other things in relation to water and try to be inspired by that space and find that space. So just, you know, like scale, I think happens on a lot of levels of pure sound and of approach, and from a lot of creative technical side, that scale idea really relates. And then I think also just, you know, we're talking also earlier about like the development of the scene down there, and like it doesn't need to be a lot of people, and the interest in sound, you know, in relation to kind of this project and to some of the many things both technology and COVID have changed, is the ability to like, your scene doesn't have to all be together. Like if you have people that, you know, you want to, speaking to like the students that you want to work with, it's like try to use, you know, try to think about the scale and the things that you do have access to, and try to utilize those to develop the scene that you want to be a part of and that energizes you, like, so that rather than our energy to try to figure out how to bridge the space between the three of us, instead we've redirected, and it gives us all a lot more energy for the project.
Yeah, there's something interesting there too, which is sometimes when you play or when you are making stuff with other people, is, for example, if I will do this project by myself, I'll find out, okay, I'm doing again this thing, I'm repeating myself. It's like I'm bored of my ways to proceed. But then when I receive your material, I realized that you did a completely different stuff, and to me is very inspiring. But probably for you it was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing again and again, right? And all these things probably like are inspiring and making the wheel work. And so I think it's also important to work with confidence of your way to proceed, right? It's like I know that I'm doing things that I did before, and it's all for me, but I need to do it like it needs to be expensive. You know, for me, it's like I'm doing every like seriously, like I'm taking each thing, each material with much sensibility as I can, and even again, even if it's all for me, it might work in the context as a completely different thing, as a new thing for someone like my the other people involved in the project.
That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for joining us. This has just been really awesome. It's been really cool to hear you talk about all of these different things. And for the class, you've all got Denny's email. Please feel free to continue this conversation, ask any questions that we didn't think to ask, and feel free to follow up in any way that feels, uh, inspired.
Yeah, I'll be really happy to stay in touch with all of you. Just send material if you're like, if you need like an insight of on your work, or you have a project or anything you want to share, even if you heard an album, or I don't know, if you're curious about the scene here, I'll be happy to stay in touch.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll see
Thank
everyone
you.
else very soon. Good night, y'all.